Welcome to Wisdom Journey, the podcast where we explore the path of building an online business from the ground up. Here, I share my wins, struggles, lessons, and experiments so you can learn, adapt, and grow alongside me. I also interview experts in their respective field. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new strategies to scale, this is your space to find inspiration and practical wisdom. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to take you on to this journey. Today on the Wisdom Journey podcast, we're joined by Joe Kavanagh, a professional business coach, mentor, and communication trainer with over 35 years of sales and marketing experience. Joe has owned multiple businesses, worked as a realtor, appraiser, and helped professionals transform their careers and close more sales by mastering uh, the one thing that's communication that connects. He's a certified NLP coach and a licensed B.A.N.K trainer, teaching entrepreneurs how to increase sales conversions by up to 300% through emotional intelligence and personality-based communication. Beyond his impressive credentials, he brings something rare, humor, heart, and Irish wit that turn business lessons into life-changing insights. Today, we're diving into how listening to relate, not just respond, can completely shift the way you sell, lead, and live. Welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you very much, Wisdom. It's an honor to be a guest on your show. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before we get started with the tactics, the techniques, and all the strategies, how did you get started doing what you do today?
Great question. Very loaded question. Okay, so I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 29. Worked for a company where you had to literally punch a time clock when you punched in and when you punched out. That's how you get paid. And they would tell you what to do, where to go, how long you had to work, when you get done, all that. And I'm not the kind of guy that likes being told what to do. So at 29, I finally quit and bought a business. And I thought, at the time, my wife and I loved to go camping. And she had suggested, actually, she said, why don't we buy a campground? We can live there. At first I thought it was crazy. Then I said, well, you know what? I want to try something, so let's do it. And that turned out to be successful. We ended up selling that to the town that we had it in because they didn't have a public beach access to any lake. And having this property would give them that access. So, and we put in a clause that said they could never develop it. So we feel good about that. And when I sold that, I took my money and invested in a Christmas tree farm because we lived up in Maine in the United States at the time. And that went well. And then we realized that we were kind of very rural and we were having children at the time and they weren't learning good social skills because we were so isolated. So we made the decision after, I think it was 5 years, that we needed to go back to civilization, to suburbia. And at the time, I was doing real estate. I started doing real estate to fill up the rest of the year. And I realized I was good at it. So we sold that farm and I started doing it and started doing real estate appraisals. We value property. And then our parents had passed away within a relatively short time of each other in a 2-year period. And my wife at the time wanted to move south where it was warm all the time. So we came down to where I am now, Charleston, South Carolina, on the East Coast of the United States. And I started my appraisal business just to see if it would work or not. And being a stranger in a town I knew nothing about, well, in about 3 to 4 years' time, I built that up into the second largest firm in the city. And so everything was going great. We decided to stay. That really set the tone for me. And I did miss selling, though, because I love helping people and relating to people and having those relationships. And in appraisals, you just don't get that connection. About 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, I got back into sales. And I took a few courses to try and help get my game back and get sharp again. And I stumbled onto a couple of new techniques, and I thought, I might give these a try. They sound pretty promising, and it worked beyond what I thought it would do. I basically almost tripled my business in a year. And so now I'm at the top of the game. I'm up there with the top 10% of all the agents, getting awards for it and all that, which I love. And yet I still didn't feel 100% fulfilled. Everybody that knew me said, because they would come and ask questions and I'd have the answer right off the bat. I wouldn't even have to research it. So they said, you should be teaching or training or something like that. And then I got to the age where I could retire. I was comfortable financially and all that, didn't have to work, but I want to stay in touch with everybody and I love helping people. So I did. I started trying out some trainings and it went, again, better than I expected it. So I got on that wheel, for a lack of a better term, and I
Yeah.
was liking that. And I had my own, I could set my schedule, work when I want to work and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's what eventually got me into the coaching. And the distinction I do want to make, because I don't think a lot of people realize this, but true coaching is not where I just sit there and tell people what they should be doing.
Do this, do
That's
that.
training. That's training.
Yeah.
Coaching is, you sit down with me, Wisdom, you're my coaching client, and I will say, okay, where do you feel stuck? Or are you stuck? And what's going
Yeah.
on? What are your issues? What would you like to improve on? And as you reveal all that to me, I have been professionally trained on how to catch what you're really saying deep inside, because sometimes it isn't what the words are, it's something behind that.
Yeah.
And I know how to ask the right leading questions, the quality questions that can get to the root of the issue. And so often it's something in somebody's past, and not going into psychoanalytics or anything like that. But for me, for example, just I'll use myself. When I started going to school, I realized quickly that some of the things I would just come out openly and say and think and whatnot, and I thought everybody felt the same way. Kids were laughing at me
Yeah.
for saying it. They thought I was weird. And so I quickly learned that if I want to be liked, I can't be like me. I've got to be
Ooh.
that person that I think they want me to be so that they'll like me. And that started in first grade at 6 years old. And it wasn't until, 5, 6 decades later, in my 60s, that it came full circle. And I realized I'm not being me. I'm being, I don't want to use the word fake, but I'm not being who I am at my true essence.
Yeah.
I'm
Trying to be
projecting.
like the norm.
Yes, I
Yeah.
want to be liked. And I thought it helped me be better at sales and all that. I finally just decided, okay, if I want to live happy, I've got to be me again, the way I think I should be. So I started coming more from the heart instead of the head. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't think people were going to take notice or even care, honestly. And everybody started to comment on it. You are so much better now, so much happier. We want to be around you, whereas before we weren't sure.
Yeah.
And I was just projecting all this great energy. And then as I came to realize that, did a lot of self-evaluation and reflection and studying and learning. I've gotten to a point now where I've helped other people hit that breakthrough and become
Oh,
who they really are meant to be. And they know what their purpose is in this lifetime. So that's kind of how everything evolved for me. And now I'm at a point where basically because I've done this successfully with a few different people, my avatar now, my focus is pinpointed to, I partner with high performing, especially men, business owners or professionals, on how to check their ego and leave it at the door. Leave it out of the conversation so you can leave with clarity, you can connect quicker and consciously influence that naturally. You can influence people in a way that naturally attracts success. And the big thing about that, which is our topic, is I didn't listen to relate. I was just listening to
mm.
give a response. So while I ask you a question, you'll be given that answer, and I'm thinking of the next question.
Yeah. Oh,
Whereas if I sit and think of what is wisdom really saying to me, and I sit with that for a few seconds, and it might, as some people say, it might seem like a pregnant pause, but it's not. It's just, I'm
yeah.
like, okay, this is what he said. This is what he's meaning. How can I help him with that? And then I come out with my response. And I was honestly surprised. I thought that, I knew that was the better way to communicate. And it ended up being much better than I expected. And it just
Oh,
kept making me more successful. So I
yeah.
help others go through that process and see that.
Wow, thank you so much, Joe. I think it's very important people get an understanding of where you're coming from, so that when you start giving these tips, they understand the proof, the messenger, and then they can also digest the message. You often say all business is relationships, right? I'm
Yes.
curious, what's a moment in your own career when you truly realized this wasn't just a saying, but a truth?
There are actually two instances that I
Okay.
can give you as an example.
Yeah.
One, I'll do them in order. One was I went to list this lady's home. She was a widow, and they, as it turned out, they were financially well off, and her husband invested well, and they owned three very expensive properties.
Okay.
And after he passed away, he had taken care of everything financially. She didn't know what she was doing. And all she knew is she said, I don't need three houses. I'm trying to sell this one. And she had another one that was out of state. So I
Yeah.
couldn't help her there. And she had already had it listed with two or three agents prior to me coming along. And it wasn't selling. So I told her, I says, I believe I can do it if you give me a chance. And she goes, all right, I'll give you 3 months. And if you can't sell it, that's it. Okay, fine. So I was getting ready for a showing on the house one day, and it was in the fall. So a lot of leaves are falling here and whatnot. And I went over there with my blower and all that to clean up the yard and the walkways to make it look pretty so that I could have an open house and have guests come in and look at the property. And
Okay.
one of the neighbors happened to be out, and he came over to talk to me, and he goes, oh, so you're the agent selling her house now, right? He said,
Yeah.
you're the agent that has her house listed now. And I said, yeah, but I'm not the agent that listed. I'm the agent that's going to sell it. And he looked at me because he could tell, obviously I said that with confidence. And he said, well, that's great. He said, you're going to get a heck of a paycheck out of that. Great commission. And I thought about that. And this is where I just stopped to think about what this guy was really saying to me. And I
Okay.
realized it wasn't about the money. So I just came out with it. I says, the reason she hired me, my goal is to accomplish her goal, which is getting this house sold and off her hands. The money will follow if I do my
Yeah.
job. And he looked at me in the eye and he pointed at me. He said, sir, you are a great agent. And when he gave me that response, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this right in
Yeah.
integrity. So no manipulation with anybody and no just saying things to get what I want and all that. So that was the big one. Another one was, well, that was the first one, I should say. The
Okay.
other example is I had a contract that we were negotiating. I had the listing. The other agent brought the buyer. It was on I think it was a $500,000 or $600,000 home, and we were about $25,000 apart in the offers. The buyer didn't want to come up anymore. The seller didn't want to drop anymore. So there was a
Yeah.
$25,000 gap, and I was trying to talk everybody into it, and make something happen. And I was really upset about it and stressed over it. And my wife said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, because I want this deal. I want to get this house sold for him. She goes, apparently it's not the right time to sell it. And I looked at her, I said, what are you talking about? And she said, you're trying to make something happen that's not ready to happen yet. I said,
You-
tell me more. I don't understand that. And she said, you do this on a lot of big situations when it gets down to the nitty gritty. She said, if you would just get out of your own way and let the universe do what it's going to do anyway in its own time, and stop trying to force it, then you'll be much better off. And I
Wow.
said, so you mean if I just forget about this and not worry about it, it'll happen? And she goes, probably. And do you know, the next day I got a call from their agent, and I did let it go that night. The next day she called and she said, look, my buyers are willing to come up the 15 if your people come down 10. I called my seller and I said, no, we're not coming down. And I said, we're 10,000 apart. It's almost nothing. And I said, how about if you come down 5 and I'll see if I can get them up another 5. They said,
Yeah.
if you can get them up another 5, we'll do it. And
Okay.
I did. It worked out. And I didn't pressure anybody. I just asked. And it's one of the things that I work on coaching, because it isn't just business. As I
Yeah.
do in my talks on stage, your business problems, especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner, your business problems are personal problems. And at the same time, your
Can
personal
you can
problems.
you expand on that? Because that's deep right there. Your business problems are personal problems. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, and on the reciprocal, your personal problems are your business problem. And what I mean
Yeah.
is things are going bad at work, and maybe I'm not making the money I wanted to, or a deal fell apart. And that's going to
Okay.
put you in a terrible mood typically, right?
Yeah.
Well, I come home at night and I'm probably going to take it out on my wife or my children or something like that
Yeah.
because I'm really upset. And it's like, don't talk to me now. And I'm not, not a happy guy and all this. So I've taken my business problem home and it's made it a personal problem, a family problem. On the flip side, let's say my wife and I are having difficulty in our marriage and we're not getting along and we're fighting all the time. You think I'm going to go to work with a positive attitude and smiling ear to ear all day long? No, I'm going to be worried
The
about
the
what problem
employees
is.
will get it.
Yeah. And so that's exactly what I mean by that. So you can't
Wow.
separate the two
Yeah.
unless you have the right mindset. And that's where my focus is. I work on that.
Yeah. And that's why I see business as one of like the best way to actually, do personal development because it will reveal so many things about you. You're scared, you're afraid, and so many things you had that you probably could hide before, but now you have to address them just to move forward to the next stage in business.
Yes. Yes. And it's amazing that so many professionals that I talk to, they don't even realize this when we first start talking about it. Just like you said, man, that's deep. Tell me more. What's it all
Yeah.
about? And honestly, when I do that, I mean, yeah, okay, I work on it and I train that now. But when I first thought about that too, it's like I just assume that's how you handle things. Because I always, since I was 29 anyway, I've had my own business. I'm the
Yeah.
boss, so everything's on my shoulders. And I had a pretty good way, I'd say for the most part, looking back, of keeping it separate from the home life and vice versa. Now, I
Yeah.
will say this, I had a pretty good home life too, so we didn't have a lot of major problems. And
Okay.
usually be if the kids got in trouble at school or, I don't know, some life events happen or car accident or things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and when I said that the first time to myself, and actually I didn't say it to myself. I said it on stage. It was part of my talk and it just came out
Okay.
with that line and everybody's like, ooh, like
Deep.
it's like the light bulbs are going off, and I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, I'm onto something here. Okay.
Okay.
And that's another thing. I firmly believe in learning something every day. It's like that
Yeah.
1% better every day. I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer in that.
Yeah. You spent decades in sales. I'm curious, right? From age 29, how has your, down to today, how's your definition of selling evolved over the years?
Okay. Actually was fortunate enough to write a chapter in a book. Not that I'm plugging
Okay.
it, but I did a chapter in this, and this is all about moments that in your life that impacted you and changed you, hopefully for the better, obviously. And in my case, it was just that. When I was younger, I knew early on that I was gifted at selling. And I have the
Okay.
gift of gab. I'm Irish, the whole thing. And my friends used to tell me, man, you could talk anybody into anything. And so as I became an adult and I did get into sales jobs and I naturally did well at them. So that's when I knew, okay, I'm a salesman. That's where I'm going to be. And I got to be the best that I can be. Um, and one of the things I talk about is, did I always get the best deal for my client or sell them the best product and all that, everything I told them? Maybe. But ultimately, it was about the money. I
Yeah.
wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to have a lot of material possessions. I wanted to have a lot of things. And I know money can get you that. So I worked as hard as I could and did whatever it took to make a deal. It didn't always look out for my client and get him the best deal I could have. Maybe. Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't. We'll leave that judgment to them. But now, as I've gotten into my 60s and I did this work on myself, especially I knew if I'm going to start coaching people and giving back with all my wisdom and experience, I got to know what I'm doing and I want to do it right. So anything that I coach or train, I've done it myself and I've proven it. I won't train or coach anything that it hasn't worked for me. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but that was the big difference. I realized that it's not just a numbers game. It's a people game.
Yeah.
It's all about making a connection because people work with people they like, and they trust, and
Yeah.
because people just want to be seen and loved.
Yeah.
So I found one of the tools that I use is a personality methodology where I can determine somebody's value system and their personality traits and trends in less than 90 seconds. And I use that to communicate with them. In other words, certain people want a step-by-step outline. They're pretty risk adverse. So they say, you got to spell this out for me, or
Yeah.
I can't get on board with you for this, right? So I would go step by step by step, bullet point everything out perfectly. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything, right? And that resonates with them, so they trust me, they want to work with me. Other people, myself is one of them, is I don't want to hear all these details about what you're going to do for me. Just tell me, how much money am I going to make in this deal? Am I going
Yeah.
to make money? Is it a good deal? That's all I want to know. I don't have time for an hour presentation.
Yeah.
So I would adapt my conversation to cut right to the chase. Say, look, I know we can get it sold. We've done it for many people before. And if you
Yeah.
give me a chance, I can get you top dollar. So what do you say? You ready to go? And they're like, sure. Okay. Um, there's another type of person where they've got to research everything and they can get analysis paralysis because they do so much research and they
Yeah.
don't want to be wrong. So they can't say yes or no, I want to work with you, or they have a hard time with it. So I know for that type of person, I want to give them all the data, all the facts on me, on the market, on the house, on the neighborhood, everything. And the more data I can give them, the better they like it. And then the better they like me. And like I
Yeah.
said a few minutes ago, people work with people they like,
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
buy from you or work with you no matter what you're selling.
Yeah. Earlier on, you talked about listening to relate. And for me, I'm curious, working with the clients you've worked, coaching clients, can you share with us a breakthrough that came from a client just feeling understood rather than being told what to do? Hey, quick break. Before we continue, I'd love for you to join the Wisdom Journey newsletter. Every week, I share exclusive insights, tools, and behind the scenes updates to help you stay ahead in your own journey of building an online business. It's simple, practical, and built to help you grow. Sign up today for free at the link in the description. Now let's get back to the episode.
Let me think. Yes, I can do that.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
I was working with one gentleman who was making his way in the real estate world, and he'd been at it a few years, honestly, and he wasn't getting the big numbers.
okay.
He wasn't having great success. And so he asked me about one of my training programs, and I said, yeah, I think it'll help you. You could take the course and we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah,
And I'll work with you afterwards if you want. Well, he took the course and he said, all right, I'm going to try this. And then if it works, I'll get back to you. And he wasn't having any success with it. So we end up chatting again a few months later. And I asked him, hey, how's it going? And he said, it's pretty much the same. I said, tell me about it. Tell me what your issues are. What are your pain points? And boy, did that open a can of worms. He just started
mm,
going on and complaining about everything. Now, when somebody's complaining about everything, yet this person's wrong, that person's wrong, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Is it really that he's connected with all these people that can't do things right? Basically, he's got, say, 4 or 5 different people he's dealing with. He thinks they're all doing it wrong or not doing it.
yeah.
What's the common denominator in each of those
Him.
sections? He is.
Yeah, yes.
So I let him see that and I turned it on him, and not in a bad way, but I said, here, this might be the issue. So we need to backtrack a little bit. And he was open to feedback. So it was good. And he says, okay, well, maybe I do need some coaching. So we did a 6-month program. And at the end of that, his whole attitude had changed.
Oh,
Without going into detail, there's a lot of different things that he had to change, but he did. And did it happen the next day? No, it doesn't happen overnight. But what it did do for him is it helped him to work smarter, not harder. That's one of my taglines. He also realized that just because somebody isn't getting something done, it's not necessarily their fault. There's a lot of things that go on in people's lives. I don't know what's going on in your life. We just
yeah,
met today, right? And you don't know, other than what I've shared, what goes on
yeah,
in my life. And people are carrying these things with them. And you got to try to understand that and come from their angle instead of making them try to see your angle. And when you can do that, that's when you get the connection of people want to work with you, and they're not going to complain because they know you're the right person. And all of a sudden, his numbers started to go up, and within the year, he had doubled what he had done the year before.
oh, I love that story. It just drives on the idea of being understood. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, one of the things you talk about is you talk about you teach people how to have fun while growing their business. And
Yes.
my question is, why do you think joy is such a powerful yet underrated business strategy?
Why do I enjoy that strategy?
Why do you think joy is such a powerful yet underrated business strategy?
Oh, joy, definitely. Honestly, I think it has to start there. You've got to be happy in your own skin because I'm a firm believer in energy. And people pick up your feelings, whether you think they do or not. If I'm coming at you and I've had a bad day, you're going to realize, and we see this all the time. You see people say, oh, and they even might comment, boy, they're probably having a bad day. They don't look too good. Or
Yeah,
they're bouncing down the street and they got a smile on their face and they're singing a song or whatever. And obviously, you're reading their body language. They're pretty
yeah,
joyful, right? Who would you rather be hanging out with?
yeah. First, the joyful person.
A joyful person, right? So that's one of my things is every day I do my meditation in the morning and I come up with a mantra. I have a few that I can rely on, or I might make my own. Some days I get creative. And whatever it is, it puts me in a good mood to start the day. And then I just go out with a positive attitude. One of the reasons that I really decided to go with that attitude every day was when I first started doing it, I was checking out at the grocery store. And the lady, people just robotically say, "Hey, how are you?" And you say, "Good, how are you?" "Good." And that's it, right? There's nothing behind that. And the lady said to me, "Hey, how are you today?" So, "I am fantabulous. How about you?"
Yeah,
With excitement. And she's like, "Whoa, that's a response I didn't expect." And she goes, "Why are you so happy?" And so what's the alternative? You want to be
yeah,
happy or miserable?
yeah.
I'd rather
Wow,
be happy. And
wow.
then she's like, "How do you stay?" She would see me over and over again and say, "How do you stay happy all the time?" I said, "Well, I don't know that I'm happy all the time, but I'd rather be happy than miserable."
Yeah,
And I've also noticed that when you do have that positive, happy attitude, positive, happy things happen to you. So you attract, if you want to get into the whole universe thing, you attract what you put out there.
yeah.
And so
Wow.
that's why energy is such an important part of it. And if people are doubting that energy is a thing, have you ever thought about somebody and thinking, geez, I should probably reach out and call them? And next thing you know, they call you.
Yeah.
Had that happen to you? I have. You're just thinking about somebody and all of a sudden they call you. My daughter did it last week. I just woke up, I went on my walk and I was thinking, I'll have to reach out to my daughter later. I get back here and I'm getting ready for the day and she called me. And, like, "Oh, wow, I was just thinking about you."
Yeah.
So, that's another
Wow.
line you hear. People will say that, "Oh, I was just thinking about you." I know, that's
Yeah.
why I called.
Wow. Earlier on, you mentioned that business is personal and personal is business, something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
In your 35 years of experience, what is that one thing, one shift, one mindset shift that you've noticed separates people who grow with ease from those who constantly struggle?
The one mind shift. Ooh, um, honestly, it's just getting into that positive frame of mind. Um, I've studied a lot of NLP, trained neuro-linguistic programming, and they
Okay.
talk about doing a state break or a mind shift or, reframing. One of the things I hear a lot is, a matter of fact, I hear from pretty much everybody when I'm working with them. They say, "Oh, I just want to make 100,000 this year." I said, "Well, if you want to make it at the end of the year, you're still going to want to make it because you get back what you put out there. So let's
Okay.
reframe that. I am having a wonderful time making my $100,000 this year." Doesn't that sound a little happier and a little more positive because you have it in your mind now that you are making 100,000, not you wish you
Yeah.
could or want to. And you'd be surprised how powerful that little reframe is because I've seen it over and over again where it
Yeah.
does change people and they get to that point and they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did it." And I said, "You said you were doing it. Why are you so surprised?"
Wow.
That's the amazing thing. Everybody thinks this is complicated. It really isn't. You just have to have the right training behind you to help guide others to do that. And I've spent the last 10 years training and investing in myself. I've spent easily six figures getting good at what I do.
Yeah. Well, there's something you said at the beginning of the episode. You said you teach people, you train people how to drop their ego, right? and actually make decisions and make progress and advance. And I'm curious, what does that look like in real life? Like, what does it mean to allowing your ego affect your decisions? What does it mean removing your ego and dropping it so that you can advance, you can make progress in business and of course in personal life too?
Got the perfect example for that. And this is
Okay.
part of my talk when I speak on stage is often, well, I'm not going to say what I do. I bring, okay, so yeah, I'll share with you.
Thank you.
At the beginning of my talk, when they call me up on stage, I have 3 suitcases that I drag up, and it's pretty clumsy trying to carry 3 suitcases at one time, right? Now, honestly,
Yeah.
they're empty, but nobody knows that. So that at least I can
Yeah.
carry them, you know? And I put them up and I put them over in the corner, and then I walk to the center of the stage and I introduce myself. And then I say, "Oh, you're probably wondering what's all that baggage over there, that luggage, right?" I'll
Yeah.
come back to that. So and then I go in my talk, and part of it I tell a story that actually happened to me. I had a new real estate agent at the company I'm associated with, and she got a listing appointment for a $600,000 property, and she was all excited, one of her first appointments.
Yeah.
And she said, "Joe, I need somebody to come along and do this for me and show me how it's done right. And I hear you're the best here. So would you come with me on the appointment and help me out?" And I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to." And so we get there that evening, and it's a lady in her, oh, she's probably around late 30s, early 40s, a nurse. And we sat down and we're talking to her. And the new agent's just sitting off to the side observing. And I start doing my thing. And I get to the end of my presentation. I said, "If you're ready to go, we got some paperwork to sign." She goes, "Well, I want to think about it overnight." And I knew that was her personality type, that she would want to sit and think about it.
Yeah.
And one of the techniques we say is, "You know what? I've come out here all this way and we just spent whatever it is, 2 or 3 hours with you this evening and took up your whole evening. We have a policy that if whenever you change your mind, you can just call us and let us know and we won't charge you anything. We'll cancel the listing."
Yeah.
And I said, "So tell you what, while we're here, why don't we get all the paperwork signed and you think about it? And if for some reason, which I usually say, can't imagine why, but if for some reason you decide you don't want to work with us, then just call me or text me and let me know, and we'll rip up the paperwork. No, no harm, no foul."
Yeah.
So she resisted that. And I'm thinking to myself, ego, I got to impress this agent. I have to get this paperwork signed. Otherwise, I'm a failure. That's my ego. And so I kept going and I used a couple other little techniques I have. So finally, she did sign that night. And I'm like, "Whew, that was a tough one, but I got it."
Yeah.
So the next morning we go in the office and she's telling some other newer agency, and she's telling them how great I am. She goes, "I never could have got that. I wouldn't have even tried." And Joe persisted and he ended up getting the listing, right? And of course my head's swelling up and my ego's really getting big. And all of a sudden I get a text, I'm sorry, a phone call. And it's from this girl from the night before. And
Yeah.
she goes, I slept on this and I thought about it." And she said, "I've decided I don't want to work with you." And I was actually kind of shocked. And I said, "You
Okay.
don't? Why? What happened? What changed your mind?" She goes, "Well, I felt like you were pressuring me last night, and I don't like to
Yeah.
be pressured." And I knew this, but my ego took over and I wanted to impress the new agent. I didn't want to
Yeah.
connect with my client, my prospect. And I said, "Well, I mean, I told you you have an easy out for it." And again, she's a risk adverse type of person. And she said, "Well, I had another gentleman from another agency come this morning. He didn't pressure me at all. And I just felt more at ease with him. So I'm going to work with him instead of you."
Yeah.
Ouch. Got
Wow.
it. And less than 14 hours later, we lost it.
Yeah.
And right after this girl's telling all the other agents how great I am. So big lesson learned. Check your ego at the door. And that's what I do. I bring the suitcases to the front of the stage and I turn them around. On each one, there's a letter E, then a letter G on another one, and a letter O.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing all that baggage with you, that's my ego. Get that out of the way. Chuck it in the closet. And
Wow.
now I want to distinguish too. There is good ego, positive ego, and there is negative ego.
Okay.
So
What
it's the
does that look like?
negative ego that you've got to suppress because we can't survive without the good ego. That's our
Yeah.
survival instincts. So there's a difference. But again, when I go through coaching and when training and whatnot, we get into all that. So it's very clear to everybody.
At the very beginning, we talked about listening to relate, not to respond. And I know you've made hints of it when you shared other stories, but I'm curious if there is a story or probably a couple of stories that spotlight a time when you just reading someone's code, right? They're reading them changed the outcome of a deal or relationship, right? And not just what all the fancy words you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you an example that does more than that.
Okay.
This gentleman called, wanted me to come list his property. So I went out there to talk to him, had a nice home out in the country. And one of the things we do when we're talking to them is we say, hey, show us your beautiful home so we can see what you
Yeah.
have. And we start talking about how we're going to market it and all that. So
Okay.
he gave me a tour of the home. And then I noticed there's one bedroom door that we didn't go in. And so we went to sit down at the dining room table to start talking. And I said, Al, is there something in that other room? Can we look at that so I can see the whole house? He goes, well, that's our bedroom. And he said, I haven't been in there since my wife passed away. I said, oh, I'm sorry.
Ooh.
When did she passed away? And it was 2 weeks ago.
Ooh.
And
That was very
now
early.
I already knew his personality type, and he's a caring guy. And he's somebody that's quick to take action when he gets stressed. Okay. And so I started putting two and two together. I said, wait a minute. So we talked. He said, you're my guy. I want you to list my home. And I looked at him and I said, Al, and I've never said this to anybody. I said, Al, I can't list your home.
Oh, what was that?
He says, why? That's what you do. You're a real estate. Every agent wants to get the listing, but you're telling me you don't want it? I said, not that I don't want it. I said, but you are going through a very traumatic situation. I
Yeah.
said, I can't relate to what you're going through because I've fortunately not gone through that.
Yeah.
And I said, but I think you could even still be in shock, although I'm not a doctor or a therapist.
Yeah.
And I said, I think you need to take a little time to process this because I was just picking up on it that, he kept saying things like, I just got to get away from here.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think it's time to sell and downsize. It was like, I got to get away from here. I can't, it's hard being in here. I keep thinking of my wife. So I told him that he should get some help and, and get through this trauma first. And, if he's in shock, deal with that. And then I said, however, once you do, and you're truly ready to sell your home, give me
Yeah.
a call. I'll be happy to sell the home for you. So he agreed. And it took about 6 months. I was checking in with him about every 5 or 6 weeks just to make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
And he called me back out. He said, I'm finally ready to do this. My sister's flown in from out of town. She's going to help me pack up. He's in his 60s and get ready to go. So I get there and I sit down at the table and he's got his sister there with him. So I'm telling her a little bit about, our prior discussion and who I am and what we can do for him.
Okay.
And they get into an argument and they start yelling at each other. And his big thing was, nobody understands how I feel. Nobody understands what I'm going through. And his sister's like, what are you talking about? I lost a son 15 years ago. That was
Mm.
traumatic. All this, right? So it's getting really deep and heavy. And I'm sitting in the middle, like each side of me, right?
Yeah.
She got so mad. And this lady couldn't have weighed 110 pounds, it seemed like. She was tiny. She got up and took one of those dining room chairs. She was going to throw it through the back glass door. She was so mad. Either throw it at him or throw it through the door. So finally it was her boyfriend, I believe. He had been outside cleaning up the yard and he heard the commotion. So he came in and luckily he took her out of the situation, out of the room. So I
Yeah.
was like, thank God. Cause I just stayed in and I was trying to be quiet as a mouse. I didn't want to get involved.
Ah.
And so afterwards, he was like, man, see, that's why I just want to take myself out. I don't want to be here anymore. And he's going on like that. Now, what I didn't say is I already knew he owned a gun because he was
Yeah.
missing the top of this finger. And he had told me earlier, he says, yeah, I was cleaning my gun one day and it went off and I lost my
Mm.
finger. And he
Yeah.
says, the hole's still on the wall right there. And he pointed to the wall. Sure enough, there's a hole in it. And then he starts this talk about wanting to just get out of the situation. Nobody understands me. I don't, nobody can talk to me. I can't relate to anybody. I just feel like I'm done. So again, knowing his personality type, and he was in a very stressful situation, I thought, how can I change this around and calm him down? So I did. And I says to him, I says, Al, I want to ask you a question, a personal question, if you don't mind. He goes, no, at this point, him and I are buddy, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, um, I hear what you're saying. I said, nobody understands what you're going through and what you've been through. And again, like I told you before, I have not been through it, so I don't understand what you're going through. I said, but I want you to do me a favor. Think about this, if you would, please. Because I'm trying to prevent himself from committing suicide, right?
Yeah.
And I said, you're going to go to the other part of the country up where his sister lives, and you're going to relocate up there. I said, do me a favor, think about this. Maybe when you go up there, you can join a support group for men who have
Yeah.
lost their wives. And of course, he started like, oh, I don't, you know, I said, no. And I'm not necessarily saying it's for your benefit,
Yeah.
but you say nobody understands you. There's probably a whole room full of guys up there that are saying the same thing.
Yeah. Nobody
And
understands
you
us.
understand them. And again,
Hmm.
he loves to help people. He had a caring personality. And I said, maybe you can save some lives or at least help get guys back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah. And he kind of thought about it. And he says, oh, I never thought about that. And he said, well, I told you I'd think about it, so I will. I said, yeah, no
Okay.
promises. Just think about it. And the next time I talked to him, he says, I really gave that a lot of thought. He says, you make sense. He said, I'm going to do
Okay.
that. So sure enough, we got the property sold. He moved to the other part of the country and he did join a support group.
Oh.
I like to think, I mean, I don't like to think, but he even told me, he says, you saved my life.
Wow.
And I'm glad that I had some influence on it. And that was from all my training. So
Yeah.
I finally really had to put it to the test that day, put it to use.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thank God there was a reason I learned all that. It was to save his life. If that's the only thing that comes of it in the rest of my life, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, this was just beyond sales or closing the deal. I love what you said with one of the quotes you said when you were addressing a question is you said you realized that sales wasn't a numbers game, that it was a people's game, and that for me was like, ooh, that's deep.
Ah, yeah. See, that's the thing. Salespeople are trained at, make phone calls, make phone calls. Well, everybody hangs up on me, tells me to stop calling them or just says no and
Yeah,
all that. Well, keep going. Eventually you get somebody that says yes. Well,
yeah,
I've done some of that training with the agents at the real estate companies, and I'll go in and help them out, and I'll listen to some of their calls, and I'll give them some tips after the call. Say, maybe you should have said it this way or asked this question or whatever. Or I would go, how about if I make some calls? Let's see, you can see how I do it, right?
yeah,
And people would say, I'll give you an example. One of the things I got more than several times where I'd call and say, hey, this is, Joe, blah, 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 with XYZ real estate.
yeah,
It's, oh my God, I'm sick of agents calling me. I said, I know, that's what I'm calling about. Okay.
yeah,
And then they'll stop like, well, what do you mean that's what you're calling about? You're going to take my name off the list? I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, do you really want to sell your house? Well, not now. Well, and then you go on, is there a time you think you might? I mean, 5, 10 years down the road. Well, I think my husband might be getting a transfer in a couple of years or so. And I'd be like,
okay,
well, tell you what, would it be okay if, at no charge to you, I'll come over and give you a free evaluation of your house so you know what it's worth today? That
yeah,
way, when that time comes a couple of years from now, you're going to know a couple of things. Because people, it's the unknown. They not sure what to do. I say, I can supply those answers and fill in the blanks. I'll keep you updated on your house once I've seen it. I can tell you what it's worth as the market moves along over the next couple of
yeah,
years. And now we've met, you know what we can offer you when that time comes. And if it's
yeah,
what you like, all you got to do is call us and we're already there. And if not, no harm foul, no foul. At least we met each other. We might become friends. You never know.
yeah,
So it's just a matter of connecting with them and just saying, hey, I'm just looking for a house to sell. The other approach I like to use, which I did start out with in my young days, not even realizing the technique I was using, but I would call you up and I'd say, Wisdom, I'm a Joe Kavanagh, real estate agent with XYZ Realty. Oh my God, I'm sick of people calling me. I said, well, I'm not calling for the reason you think I am.
okay,
And that's usually like, okay, why are you calling me then? Well, I'm wondering, we've got people that are looking for homes in your neighborhood. And I want to know who you know that has
yeah,
mentioned that they might be selling their house in the near future. We might be able to get them a nice off-market deal, and they won't even have to go through the inconvenience of being on the market and showing the house and all that.
yeah,
Now, 95% of the time, 98% of the time, they're going to say, oh, I can't think of anybody right now.
yeah,
Then now I've got them, I'm conversing with them. And literally now I can turn around and say, how about you? Have you ever thought about selling your home? And
Yeah.
I've had a few people who would say, well, we have, if we can get the right price. I'm like, wonderful. I can come over and tell you what the home is worth. And if that's the right
Yeah.
price, maybe we can capitalize on the market. And if it's not, at least you'll know how much it is worth. So that's an appointment where when I first called, they wanted me to hang up. And yet I got the appointment because I related to them. I didn't, as I call it, I didn't attack them.
Yeah, really just hitting them with scripts and after script after script.
And
like,
that's where I
yeah,
see a lot of fault with people. And then that's the biggest complaint. And in real estate, I do this with all kinds of businesses, but real estate's been the one I've been in associated with closest over the last 40 years. So it's easy to get trainings with agents and companies and
yeah,
things like that. And that's the biggest complaint I hear about agents. Oh, I'm sick of making all these phone calls of people hanging up on me. Well,
yeah.
don't let them hang up on. Relate to them. Ask them how they're
Well,
doing. Don't even talk real estate.
well,
Yeah.
thank you for that story and that example. There's one technique I mentioned when I was reading out your intro, and I'm super curious about it. That is the bank system, the
Yes.
B.A.N.K. Can you tell
Mhm.
me a little more about it?
Interesting wisdom, because actually I have been talking about it throughout. It's that way of finding out what a person's personality is. And let's see the different ways of doing that. And I just happen to have a set of cards here that's the easiest way. So if I was coming to your property to sit down and talk about listing your home, um, these 4 cards right here, they each have a set of
Okay,
values on them.
okay,
And I ask the people to read each card, all the values on the card, and they get all 4 like that. And they're each different. And then I ask
awesome.
them, sort the cards in order by putting the one that sounds most like you on top. Put that
Yeah.
first.
Just
And
for the audio listeners, could you like say out what each of the letters mean?
well, yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay,
So the
okay,
B.A.N.K is an acronym, okay?
okay,
And it stands for the 4 basic personality types: is blueprint, action, nurturing, and knowledge. B.A.N.K.
okay.
Quick summary of each one, if we've got a minute. Your blueprint type person, that's somebody who they're risk adverse. And she was in that example I gave. They like things planned out. They don't like surprises. They want structure. They want predictability, responsibility. They like credentials. I've got to be an accomplished person for them to trust me. Okay. Trust
Yeah,
is an issue with them big time. And they don't like you to be late. If you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you
yeah,
show up on time, you're late. So I go early to those appointments. The A, and this is me, A's, they're like, we're spontaneous. We don't like to take our time. Okay, the blue people, the blue personality blueprint, let's use a box for an analogy. They live inside the box. They follow all the rules and everything to the T, right?
yeah,
Actions are the opposite. They'll break every rule they can if they can get away with it.
yeah,
And they like fun, spontaneity, like the spotlight. That's why I like being on stage. They like to
yeah,
win. That's why the majority of your athletes and successful salespeople are action type people, because
yeah,
you don't know what's coming next. And they love risk, because big risk, big reward. Then
yeah,
the third type, and then the action people with the box, they're like, box? What box? You're not putting me in any box. They just want to explode out of there like a rocket and destroy the box. Then your nurturing type, they're the kind of people that are supportive. They don't want the headlines. They don't want to be the spotlight, but they'll support you in everything you do. And they're
yeah,
happy when you do win. And those kind of people, they don't live in the box and they don't blow it up. They repurpose or recycle the box. So put flowers in it, whatever, make it a vase, that kind of thing. And a lot of these people, they work a lot with nonprofits because they love to help people, work as a community, work as a group. My wife has what she calls a tribe of friends, and that's your nurturing type personality. Ethics is extremely high with them, and harmony, getting along. That's all they want. Everybody just get along. And then the last one, the K, that's your knowledge person. This is the person that loves research. They
oh,
can't get enough of it. The more information you give them, the happier they are. They appreciate high intelligence. They love to learn, self-mastery. They're big on technology, research and development, that sort of thing. And they they didn't, they don't live in the box. They didn't blow it up. They didn't recycle it. They're like, hey, we're the smartest in the room. Without us, you wouldn't have a box because we engineered it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they created the box.
Wow. Wow.
So that's the very like an introductory 2 minutes of it. We have a whole course on that, a 2-day course. We can go deep
Yeah.
into it and really understand the likes, the dislikes, the do's, the don'ts, the tendencies, and all that. Teaches you how to connect with them authentically with no manipulation. That's one of the two primary tools that I use in our training, and I've implemented in my business that help make me more successful.
Thank you so much for going through the bank system.
Sure.
If you could whisper one last piece of advice to every entrepreneur starting out, what would it be?
Yes. Stop being the person you think everybody else wants you to be and be who you are at your true essence. In other words, what's your why? What's your purpose? Why are you on this earth, in this lifetime, in this body? You're here for a reason. And once you know that and you can connect back to that, as I call it, my source, then your life just becomes so much simpler and so much greater. It's like 100x better, 1000x, and it gives you a reason to carry on every day and helps you to be happy every day because you're doing what you're here to do. We all have a
Yeah.
purpose.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and to connect with you? You mentioned that you have those courses and trainings. Where can they access these things?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. First of all, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm
Okay.
getting active on LinkedIn. I didn't have time for it before, but I've
Yeah.
realized that my people are on LinkedIn, and when they don't hear from me for a while, they kind of forget about me. So
Yeah.
I've actually just started last month and really getting into it now. We're going to start posting regularly, so I'll be more active. But that's a
Yeah.
good way to get me. Or my email is candjcoaching@gmail. And it's my wife, Cindy, and my name is Joe. So it's C for Cindy, A-N-D, J for Joe, coaching, candjcoaching@gmail. And then just reach out to me. And the way I look at it, I don't pressure people. What you see is what you get, a word on my sleeve, as they say.
Yeah.
And I'm an easy guy to get along with. I realize everybody's got different personalities and different agendas. And I usually just have a conversation. We say 15 minutes ends up being 45. Especially because honestly, even it could be 5 minutes because I can realize in 5 minutes if that's somebody I would want to work with or not. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not made for everybody and not
Exactly.
everybody's made for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You make it sound like it's marriage.
It is in a way because you're partnering up. I'm
uh,
going to help
yeah.
you become a more successful person. So I've got to know all about you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You
in the
invested
process,
time,
you're going to
energy.
know about me because as like I'm doing here, I've been given examples of things I've gone through and how
Yeah.
it changed me. And I like to lead by example.
Yeah. Well,
Expert
thank you so
modeling is
much.
what we call that.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'll put the links in the description so listeners can click and
Thank
go
you.
there to the site. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you, Joe. Thanks for tuning into Wisdom Journey. I hope today's episode gave you practical steps and fresh ideas to keep moving forward. If you found value, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a fellow creator or entrepreneur who'd love to learn too. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and the link in the description for more resources, experiments, and lessons straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep walking your own wisdom journey. Yeah.